Welcome back to the deep dive into our series, La Conquista. If you've been with us here on Voces a la Historia, you know we've charted the Spanish arrival. We've covered Columbus, Mesoamerica, even the brutal administration of men like Pedrarius Davila.
But the story of the New World was never just the Spanish one. So today, we're shifting our compass. We're heading north into the cold, unforgiving waters of the North Atlantic.
Right. This is the story of the nations who were basically locked out: England, Portugal, France.
Exactly. And our mission in this deep dive is to pull out the key insights from their first, often disastrous attempts to get a foothold. We're going from Cabot's first landing right through to Cartier's failed colony.
So to really get this, you have to understand the geopolitics. I mean, you have the Treaty of Tordesillas, the Pope's Alexandrine Bulls,
which essentially carved up the newly discovered world for Spain and Portugal. But here's the crucial detail. That dividing line they drew, it was only 370 leagues west of the Azores.
So everything north of that was just wide open.
It was fair game, a massive loophole. And for every other European power, that meant one thing.
The shortcut, the Northwest Passage.
Absolutely. The driving theory, was that the world got narrower at the poles. So an Arctic route to Asia, to the Indies would be faster, cheaper, and crucially, free of Spanish ships.
But there's a pretty big obstacle in the way.
A monumental one. The sea ice. The sources call it the banquisa.
The banquisa? What are we talking about here? Just icebergs?
Oh, much more than that. It's this immense, shifting, unpredictable mass of ice. These captains were sailing wooden ships into conditions that, frankly, would challenge a modern icebreaker.
So it's kind of like the Franklin expedition, but centuries earlier.
It's a perfect analogy. You're dealing with that same level of environmental hostility, but with 15th century technology. It was almost a suicide mission.
Okay, let's start with the first real push, England. And the man they hired was a Genoese navigator, Giovanni Caboto.
John Cabot, as we know him. And his pitch to King Henry VII was brilliant in its simplicity. He basically said, if Columbus can get to Asia by sailing west and south, I can get there faster by sailing west and north. And he had the perfect base of operations, Bristol.
A port that already knew the North Atlantic?
Deeply. They had fishermen, whalers. They had the expertise, so he's leveraging existing knowledge, not just sailing into the complete unknown.
And in 1497, he makes landfall. Probably Newfoundland, maybe Cape Breton. But what I find fascinating in the John Day letter from 1498 is how little they actually saw.
It's incredible, isn't it? The letter says they only went inland a crossbow shot, maybe 50, 100 meters.
And what did they find?
A narrow path, signs of a recent fire. And that's it. But from that tiny shred of evidence, they concluded it was Tierra Poblada, a populated land.
So they just assumed. And this is where you can see the whole focus of this northern exploration really diverged from the Spanish model.
How so?
The reward. I mean, Cabot gets back and the king gives him a pension of 10 pounds.
10 pounds. It's almost insulting. Meanwhile, Columbus is, promising mountains of gold.
Exactly. The English crown names it Terra Nova, Newfoundland, but they're not thinking conquest. They're thinking about the cod. The rich fishing banks Bristol sailors were already buzzing about.
And that commercial focus takes over almost immediately. Because Cabot's next big expedition, 5 ships in 1498, it just vanishes. It's lost at sea.
And the state just gives up.
The state's support evaporates, and private money rushes in to fill the vacuum. You get groups like the Company of Adventurers of the Newfound Land. The real English effort wasn't about planting a flag. It was about packing barrels with fish.
Okay, let's shift over to Portugal. Now, they already had Brazil, thanks to Tordesillas, but they were also looking north, right, to this Terra dos Bacalhaus.
The land of cod, yeah. They wanted to confirm their claim to it, and this effort was really a family affair. The Corte-Real brothers, Gaspar and Miguel.
And their father had supposedly been there even earlier.
There's a theory, yeah, that Joan Vaz Corte-Real might have reached the area in the 1470s, using that old Viking route through Iceland and Greenland.
But the story of his sons is, it's a tragedy.
A complete tragedy. Gaspar is lost on his second voyage in 1501. The next year, his brother Miguel gets 3 ships. They split up to search the coastline.
And he vanishes too.
Gone without a trace. And this is where the story gets really interesting, because their disappearance creates this national obsession, a legend.
Which brings us to a rock in Massachusetts, the Daytona Stone.
Exactly. Fast forward to the 1920s. a professor, Edmund Burke Delabar, he looks at these carvings on a rock and puts forward this incredible theory.
What's the theory?
He argues the inscriptions are a message from Miguel de Corte-Real dated 1511, years after he was lost, claiming the land for Portugal.
Wow. So if that were true, it would completely rewrite the timeline.
It would be huge. It would give Portugal this foundational claim deep in North America. They would be using this lost explorer to retroactively justify their presence in the land of cod.
But it was debunked, right?
Oh, yes. Later Portuguese historians like Luis de Albuquerque, they showed it was far more likely to be Native American glyphs, but the story was too good to let go.
What do you mean?
Well, the Portuguese state actually commissioned a replica of the stone. It's on display today in Lisbon's Naval Museum. It just shows you how powerful a good story can be, even a false one, when you need some geopolitical leverage.
So the official state efforts from England and Portugal are a mix of tragedy and, well, wishful thinking.
Right. But the real story, the one that's actually shaping the future of the region, is happening quietly. It's what some sources call the private conquest.
You're talking about the fishing fleets, the French, the Portuguese,
Yeah.
and especially the Basques.
The Basque whalers are just a phenomenal story of industrial power. I mean, their whaling tradition in the Bay of Biscay goes back to the 7th century.
So as the local whales get hunted out.
They just follow them further and further into the Atlantic until they reach Terra Nova and Labrador, and they set up these huge seasonal camps.
In places like Red Bay, the Bahia de los Vascos.
Yes. And we're not talking about a few guys in a boat. This was heavy industry. They were processing enormous amounts of whale blubber into oil.
Oil for what, exactly?
For everything. Lighting lamps across Europe, processing textiles, and for calfatillado, the tar you needed to waterproof ships.
And their ships were massive.
Colossal. The Arbol could be up to 700 tons. To give you some context, the Santa Maria, Columbus's flagship, was maybe 100 tons. These were floating factories with crews of 100 men.
And they had this incredible, almost accidental advantage over everyone else when it came to health, the scurvy problem.
Yes. The scurvy paradox. It's amazing. Basque crews just didn't get scurvy nearly as badly as English or French crews.
And the reason was?
Cider. Cider. It was just their regional tradition. Instead of beer, they brought barrels and barrels of cider. They were unknowingly dosing themselves with vitamin C. A simple drink gave them this huge survival edge.
And all this time spent there year after year, it must have led to some unique interactions with the local peoples.
Absolutely. This wasn't about conquest, it was business. Purely transactional, which led to the creation of pidgin languages.
A mix of Basque and local languages.
Exactly. A simplified trading language, combining their unique language, Euskara, with the languages of tribes like the Micmac. It was a relationship built on commerce, not subjugation.
Though it wasn't always peaceful. There's that pretty dark story from Iceland, the Matanza de los Vascos.
The massacre of the Basques, yeah. In 1615, tensions over supplies boiled over, and an Icelandic magistrate ordered the execution of 32 shipwrecked Basque whalers. It was so brutal it led to their fishing rights in Iceland being completely revoked. Shows just how high the stakes were.
Right, that leaves one major power, France, under King Francis I, who was famously furious about being excluded.
He had that great line. He demanded to see the clause in Adam's will that cut him out of the New World.
So, like the others, French interest starts with private voyages.
Right. Early guys like Jean Denis and Thomas Aubert, they're bringing back fish, but they also bring back Native American captives, Micmacs, to Rouen in 1512.
Which proves there are people there and raises the stakes.
Exactly. And that paves the way for the big one, Jacques Cartier. His missions from 1534 on have a dual purpose.
Find the passage, of course.
Yeah.
And what was the other one?
Find the mythical kingdom of Saguenay, this legend of a northern kingdom with white-skinned, wealthy people. It might have even been a fossilized memory of the old Norse settlements.
And Cartier's approach on the ground is immediately aggressive.
Oh, incredibly. He gets to the St. Lawrence River, plants this massive 30-foot cross, and claims the land for France, which you can imagine doesn't go over well with the local Iroquois leader, Donnacona.
And Cartier's response?
It's just brutal. He kidnaps two of Donnacona's own sons, Tagnoigny and Domagaya, to use as translators and, well, hostages.
But that terrible act actually ends up saving the French, doesn't it?
It's the ultimate irony. That winter, 1535-36, scurvy just rips through the French camp. They're all dying.
And the Iroquois save them.
They do. They show the French how to make this tea from a tree they call Anita, the tree of life, probably cedar or arbor vitae. This indigenous knowledge cures the disease and saves the entire expedition.
Despite that, the whole colonial project just falls apart.
It completely fails. In 1541, a nobleman named Roberval takes over. The colonists are freezing, they're starving, scurvy is back, and the Iroquois are now openly hostile. They kill 35 Frenchmen. And of course, the promised riches.
The gold and diamonds?
The gold was iron pyrite fool's gold. The diamonds were just quartz. The failure was so total it gave France a new saying, "Gros comme les diamants du Canada," false as the diamonds of Canada.
And the whole expedition ends with this bizarre, cruel anecdote.
Roberval's final act. He maroons his own relative, Marguerite de la Roque, on a desolate island, the Isle of Demons, just for having a lover on board. It's one of the most incredible survival stories of the whole era, a fittingly grim end to a failed venture.
So when you pull it all together, this deep dive shows a northern conquest that looks nothing like what was happening in the south.
Not at all. It wasn't driven by these grand, state-sponsored military gestas. It was driven by private commercial grit, by the relentless search for fish, for furs, and for whale oil.
And the key takeaway for you listening has to be this. The official royal attempts all failed.
Completely. England, Portugal, France, they didn't find the passage, they didn't establish permanent colonies, but what their failures did was cement the North Atlantic as this intensely competitive economic zone. It set the stage for everything that came in the 17th century.
So the real pioneers, the people who actually defined this first era of contact, weren't the explorers with royal charters.
No, they were the anonymous fishermen, the Basque whalers, and the people who would come next, the coureurs de bois,
The forest runners.
the forest runners. They weren't there for a king. They were there for beaver pelts. They were establishing relationships based on trade, often using firearms as currency, not on outright conquest. And that complex, often messy private commerce is the real foundation of what would become French and British North America.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the hidden history of the North Atlantic. If you enjoyed this journey through the sources, please share your thoughts and recommend this series. Discover what they didn't tell you about the encounter of two worlds.